Welcome to Rising Resilience, where we untangle the complexities of sustainability in a developing country like the Philippines. Today we are on episode 3, and I'm Alex,
I'm Kyle.
and we are going to talk about farm to table.
Farm to table. What's that, Alex?
Well, it's a movement that has gained traction worldwide that promotes sustainable sourcing by reducing food miles and supporting local economies.
Interesting. I've always been a avid food lover, right? So I would consider myself a little bit of a connoisseur. And food in the Philippines is very interesting because you have all the provinces, all these regions, and they have their own special cuisine, huh?
Exactly. Even in Luzon, like the food in the north will be different from the food in the south. Like Pampangueño food would usually be more spicy. Somewhere in the south, it would be a little bit more sweet or salty. And then desserts are also like every province will have their own version of a dessert.
Exactly. And growing food is also big in the Philippines because agriculture contributes to approximately 9.6% of the country's GDP. This represents both opportunities and challenges for the industry as a whole, from the farmers to the logistics providers to the supermarkets. Today, we really want to tackle what makes food interesting in the Philippines and how we can be more sustainable in getting it from the farm all the way to your table.
Correct. Yeah. So apparently there are a few sustainable metrics that covers this. Usually this would include a carbon footprint, the food waste, and what are the sustainable farming practices. Apparently here in the Philippines, an average food item travels around 1,000 to 3,000 kilometers before it reaches urban markets like in Metro Manila.
But if they do source it locally and buy it from the local farms, they are able to reduce transport emissions by up to 30%, which is really what the government is trying to drive. Also, Alex, if a food item travels that far, 1,000 to 3,000 kilometers before it reaches the urban markets, it will also cost more.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Because everything that's related to it, like the logistical costs, the manpower related to bringing the food straight to Metro Manila, like there's already so much it went through before it reaches our mouth.
Exactly. You know that this is one of the things that really caught me off guard when I came to the Philippines, because I realized that in particular, food is pretty expensive. It's almost comparable to what I would buy in the supermarkets in Singapore. We're talking eggs, vegetables, especially. Broccoli is a notorious one.
Yeah.
Your onions, your garlic. And for the longest time, I was really perplexed as to why a agriculture rich archipelago like the Philippines would be expensive. And as we research more into this particular topic, we also realize that there are a lot of barriers before it reaches your table. And this includes middlemen, distributors, wholesalers. So,
Which has their own computation of logistical costs.
exactly.
And it really adds up.
Yeah. So every single step of the way, it gets marked up,
Yeah.
right? And then when it gets to the end user or the consumer, it's already priced pretty
Pretty
expensive. Another thing that I found interesting is that the Philippines, in terms of food waste, the Philippines generates about 2,175 metric tons of food waste daily.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of food, right?
And that's a lot of food that can, I mean, if we were more responsible or we cooked more responsibly, we ordered more responsibly, it could really feed a lot of people.
Exactly. I think it can definitely feed a small village in Africa.
And, yeah.
Another thing about why there's so much food waste, right, is also spoilage because these foods don't store really well. There is also a lack of cold storages in the Philippines.
Yes, correct.
A
Oh, and
lot.
I hope we cover cold storage at some point.
We will. And a lot of these cold storages are managed by supermarkets, warehouses.
Mm-hmm.
They're still private in nature, right?
Mm.
So if you imagine if a food item travels 3,000 kilometers all the way to it reaches you,
Mm-mm.
um,
Everything needs to be sold.
exactly,
Everything needs to be eaten
exactly.
because there's not enough cold storage. There's really a high demand for it, especially in Metro Manila, where we have a lot of restaurants, we have a lot of supermarkets. It's very populated metro, so there's really a lot of people doing groceries, cooking at home, eating out.
So, what some of these restaurants are doing, and today we have a very, very interesting guest that you guys will meet later. What a lot of these restaurants are doing is that they are directly partnering up with the farms,
Mm-mm.
right? So they are basically getting this fresh local ingredients at a very, very competitive cost.
Mm-mm.
Uh, and then, especially for our guest today, he
Yeah.
elevates them.
Uh-huh. And if you partner with a farmer, apparently it's an automatic like 20% reduction in on your on food waste.
And I guess like another thing about why food prices are all over the place is because even for me, I was not really aware of this. Is that harvest is seasonal,
Mm-mm.
so you don't get a constant quantities of a particular vegetable throughout the
Mm-mm.
year. So it really depends on weather,
Seasonality.
climate.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's really a very, very seasonal product to begin with,
Mm-mm.
right?
And if you are consistent, like, oh my god, I need my avocado today, every day for the rest, like for this whole year,
Hmm.
even if it's a seasonal fruit, it's a fruit, right?
Yes, it is.
Then the demand for an avocado, it only means that somehow supermarkets will have to start importing them.
Exactly. So with foods being seasonal, what you'll see is significant supply fluctuations, right? And
Mm-mm.
with supply fluctuations, you will also have price
Mm.
fluctuations. Also, Philippine is no stranger to natural disasters
Yes,
and
correct.
climate change, such
Yeah.
as typhoons. Sometimes it gets too hot,
Mm-mm.
and
Sometimes it's super wet. We get typhoons, and then all the farms get flooded, and then all the crops are wasted.
exactly, exactly. And here in Metro Manila, a lot of people are buying produce from supermarkets, right? People are going less and less to the wet markets where, they have access to maybe cheaper foods or
Or
vegetables.
also the convenience of going to a supermarket, because maybe a wet market is like too far from them, but there's a nearby Save More, a nearby Robinson supermarket, or a
SNR.
marketplace, SNR.
Hmm.
Like for the convenience of it, some people would just do their groceries in a supermarket rather than a wet market.
And it brings me to my next point, right? It almost seems that the consumer is willing to pay that extra. However, everyone that I've spoken to still feels that food and fresh produce, especially, is really unaffordable. So we really want to tackle this a little bit more, right?
Mm-mm.
Because according to the survey by the Philippine Statistics Authority, it found out that 65% of urban consumers are willing to pay a premium of 10 to 20%
Mhm.
for sustainably sourced local produce. Right?
Can you imagine that time when there was a shortage of onions? And
Oh yes.
onions were priced at 300 pesos per kilo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, and then that was the time that I stopped buying onions.
I think everyone ate lesser onions, and
Yeah.
I think the restaurants as well maybe excluded
Mm-mm.
or
Or
lessen the
yeah,
amount
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
onions in
yeah,
their
exactly.
dishes.
And then that's so tough because in Filipino food, there's always onions, garlic, tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are some of the constant ingredients. Like before we would cook our garlic fried rice, it would always be, saute the garlic. But if the garlic is so expensive, then how?
Exactly. Another thing about farming and agriculture is that it's also a dying trade. These farmers, they are having a hard time passing down this business to the sons and the
Mm-mm.
daughters, the second generation, right?
Mm-mm.
Um, as the country gets more, more educated, people want to work in corporate. They want
Yeah, they
to
want
be
to
in the
work in the
office.
city.
They want to come to the city. They
Yeah.
want to be in a air conditioned office. So I'm really really afraid of what's going to happen when you know the first generation of farmers the current generation of farmers
Mm.
they get too old and they eventually
Yeah.
move on.
Well, we're actually seeing that already, and the effects of it are you see it in our supermarket. Basically, I if I'll make a guess, an estimate. Maybe more than 50% of the produce that we see in supermarkets are imported. And it's really sad. We have a lot of vegetables and local produce that we really grow in even in Luzon. There's a lot in Baguio, in Batangas. To see that we have a lot of imported produce in supermarkets, it's really sad and disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I would understand if the Philippines was a little bit like Singapore, where land is really
Yeah,
scarce, right?
exactly.
Where having a plot of land to grow vegetables and produce is almost impossible,
Mm-mm.
right?
And whenever we compare prices from in Singapore and Philippines, somehow broccoli is more affordable there. And I feel
Exactly.
like I only eat broccoli whenever we go to Singapore.
Exactly, exactly. And kind of creates this feedback loop where eating healthier, eating fresh vegetables, fresh produce is more expensive.
Suddenly, the idea of eating healthy is more expensive.
Exactly. And it really saddens me when I see kids eating unhealthy food. Like
Lots of fast food.
out of convenience, right?
Yeah.
Like your Jollibee, your
Yeah.
McDonald's, your KFC.
Mm-mm.
And this is done out of convenience,
Mm-mm.
but I don't blame the parents because eating healthy is also quite expensive.
It's very, very unfortunate. And then I think another trend that is really affecting food prices are dining out. Eating out is actually such a typical Filipino bonding experience. They used to say that in retail, if you wanted to open a restaurant, because here in the Philippines, it will always have a high success rate because Filipinos love to eat.
I love eating out. But here in the metro, I'm currently based in Makati. Eating out in Philippines is more expensive than eating out in Singapore,
Yeah.
right? Restaurants are charging a bomb when it comes to food. In Singapore, at the very least, we have hawker centers that provide a unique, cheaper experience, but also a different experience.
But the food is really good, and yet it's still affordable.
Yeah, and hawker centers in Singapore, it's not bounded by class. What I mean by that, it means that even the rich people will eat at hawker centers.
Mm-mm.
It's almost like an equilibrium of
Mm-mm.
sorts. In the Philippines, there are no places like this. Food courts are like the closest thing I could find,
Yeah.
similar to a hawker center, and those are also found in the malls.
So, some of the recommendations that are being done from both public and private sector is to promote locally produced vegetables and fruits. And for consumers to support this by buying in the wet markets because that's where most of the local produce are being sold. And of course, in terms of like reducing food waste, it's really, meal planning. Actually, meal planning is quite fun.
I think that people should cook more. You know,
Yeah.
people should really cook more. I used to remember a time where packing lunch was norm. I don't see
Mm-mm.
that anymore these
Yeah.
days.
Everyone's always rushy.
Mhm.
Okay, this may be like, maybe it's a bit far off, but like if people spent 4 hours a day on the road, this also affects the kind of diet that they have day to day because they just don't have the time and energy to cook their packed meals and they have to go to work every day. Maybe someone who lives in Rizal needs to wake up at like 5 in the morning so that he or she can leave around 6 to be on their way to Makati for a 8 9 a.m. time in,
Job. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Uh,
then go home super late. And then by the time you finish your day, you're super tired. So there's just no energy left to cook your food.
it's amazing how we talk about this, and you can really see how food affects your lifestyle.
Mm-mm.
Some may argue food will also affect the way you look and the way you appear. You know, if
Mhm.
you eat junk every day on a constant basis,
I was gonna
then
say, then you look like junk. I'm kidding.
yeah. Um, and then it also have health repercussions, eh?
Of course.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of health repercussions are because of bad diets as
Yeah.
well, right? Like a lot of health issues that we know of at this
Mm-mm.
stage, like diabetes,
Mm-mm.
heart disease,
And that's on top of like
cholesterol.
the normal stress that everyone goes through every day.
Exactly. I think that's what we have for you guys for now. We're going to take a short 1 minute break. So stay tuned for our sponsors, and then we're going to jump in and say hello to our guests for today.
Hey there, Filipino go-getters. Are you feeling overwhelmed by your business? Back-to-back meetings, long hours, and endless to-do lists. That nagging feeling you're missing out on something big. 1111 Consulting can help. We believe in collaboration and growth. It starts with a conversation and an idea. We specialize in knowing your competitors, decoding market insights relevant to your business, streamlining your operations, and elevating your business to the next level. We'll help you identify and measure potential markets, generate leads, reach your target market, and reposition your brand so you can finally focus on what you love, running your business. Here at 1111 Consulting, we research and analyze big data to come up with valuable insights to help you get ahead of the competition. Our clients end up making better and more informed business decisions and grow their business. Whether you're a small to medium business or a large corporation, 1111 Consulting has you covered. Visit e11consulting.com today and find out more.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today we have Chef Don joining us to talk about farm to table restaurants. And this is a very exciting and fun topic because Kyle and I, we love going to restaurants, we love trying new recipes, and we love eating healthy.
Food is always a big part in our lives. Alex, I try to cook from time to time as well. And I've always been passionate about food. But Chef Don here, he's on a different level. If you Google him and you see the pictures of the food that he serves,
It looks clean, healthy, and really yummy.
it is elevated. Oh, without further ado, Chef Don is here. Hello, Chef.
Hi guys. Good
Hi.
evening or good morning or good afternoon wherever you are.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do in the space of food, right?
So basically, yes, we opened a concept here in our farm. It's actually a farm here in our province in Negros Occidental. It's a small province here in the Philippines. And the concept of what we do, especially my wife and I, is we call it hyper local. So basically, compared to other concepts, this is fairly new. So hyperlocal in the essence is pertaining to literally we only use things that are coming from the island of Negros Occidental.
Okay.
That's super interesting, right? Because like Philippines as a nation, as an archipelago, have so many beautiful ingredients, and then the ethos of your restaurant is really taking advantage, bringing these ingredients to another level. Am I about right there, Chef?
Yeah, it's okay for people to understand. The Philippines is so diverse that it's not just, let's say, what they say Filipino ingredients are available, because a lot of the ingredients you can find all over Southeast Asia or even Asia to be specific, you can find here in the Philippines. So it's not a stretch to really expand on what you want to do.
For the audience listening and for someone who's a little bit unfamiliar with your style of cooking, can you tell us maybe one or two items of your best sellers in your kind of private fine dining restaurant that you have right now?
Okay, so one of our best sellers so far is that or are the different types of ceviche that we do.
Okay, and this is fish. Eh? Ceviche is raw fish, chef. Am I correct here?
Yeah, it's raw fish, but we found a way on how to basically ceviche almost all types of seafood. In our dialect, it's called kinilaw, or in the Luzon, it's called kilawin. So a lot of the times we try and push the boundaries in some of the ingredients that people normally would say like, "Oh my god, I didn't know you could turn that into ceviche." And so it's like, yeah, it's in a way we're trying to do like ceviche. We have kilawin, kinilaw, and we also have a form of crudo. So I mean, sky's the limit, really.
What is the challenge for you when it comes to choosing the ingredients that you use?
Okay, the funniest challenge is actually the seasonality. There's always a joke. There's always a joke between chefs and between suppliers. So they say that, oh yeah, in the Philippines it's only you have 4 seasons. So I mean, in other countries you have 4 seasons, right? So you have winter, spring, summer, fall. In the Philippines you also have 4 seasons. So you have rainy season, you have stormy season, you have summer season, and you have El Nino. So
Yes.
you technically have 4 seasons. And we found out that the seasons actually match with the ingredients. And
Mm-mm.
it took us a while to help even our producers, our partners, our affiliates realize that, oh yeah, our produce is better during this time of the year.
Oh.
Our produce is bigger this time of the year, or our produce is more juicy or sweeter or fresher tasting this time of the year. So
Mm-mm.
it's been a long project that we've been doing. I mean, we've been open for almost 10 months, but the partnerships that we've been building have been going on for the past 2 years.
Wow. Wow, that's definitely super impressive, chef. I want to rewind a little bit, right? And I want to get to know Chef Don from the early stages of his life, the early stages of your life. You know, before you are this successful restaurant owner, this successful chef, this creative chef that serves all kinds of ceviche. What is the story of Chef Don when you were young?
Okay, I grew up in a family that's very old school. Like, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a businessman. It's like those are the usual, old school preferences of my grandparents, my parents. So technically, in my family, I was the first one to study outside of the norm, outside of like the usual businessman, business management, those things. I was the first
Mhm.
one to study culinary arts, and I studied in Enderan.
Okay.
Um, before that, my grandmother on my father's side is actually from Pampanga, from Guagua. So it's the culinary capital of the Philippines. And as a kid, growing up in that household where your grandmother is Pampangueño, you realize that I was what, 3 or 4 years old. They would sit me in the kitchen and feed me food every
Mm.
day. And my grandmother would tell the yaya that okay, if Don likes the food, we'll cook it this way. If he doesn't like it, we have to change it. So she would feed me left and right. And if I spat it out, they're like, okay, it's either too sweet, too salty, or I didn't know how to react back
So,
then.
so this is also a way where you really cultivated your taste buds, huh? You really
Oh,
refine your taste buds.
yes, yes. Those are the experiences I had growing up that until today, when I'm doing R&D in our kitchen, I always have that flashback memories of my grandmother making me try. And I
Yeah.
do that to my wife. So I do that to my wife and I tell her, you have to try this. And if she has a weird reaction, I'm like, okay, what's wrong? And she goes like, I can't explain it. Is it salty, sweet, sour? Is it too much? And he goes like, oh
Right.
yeah, it's one of those. And then I'm like, okay, now I realize.
Okay, okay. So now you need to continue working on it.
Yeah,
so
then I
so
have to evolve.
so you go to culinary school. How was that experience? And then what happened after the fact?
Before I went to culinary school, I was in political science for almost a year and a half.
Wow. Okay.
I got so bored with it that I was so unhappy. And then I told my grandparents, I told my parents, I mean, like, I'm very unhappy. So I said, okay, I'm going to enroll in Enduran. There's nothing you guys can really do about it. And so this is what I want to do. This is what I want to experience. This is what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. And at the end of the day, there was a lot of negative comments left and right, the usual.
Hmm.
But my father, being very supportive, he said, "Okay, go and do it." And yeah, from then on, it's just went on from then.
Such a nice backstory. But actually, low key, even when you were little, they were already teaching you flavors, and it really affected how you are as a chef today.
That's the funny thing because we are 12 first cousins, and I was the
Uh-huh.
only one that they would sit down in the kitchen and feed
Is
out
it
of the
because you're the
12.
youngest?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm the youngest.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, from then on, it's been a roller coaster of a ride, but I really cannot complain, and it's been amazing.
Is your wife or your partner a chef, or are you like training her secretly?
No, we're kind of it's not really an odd couple, but basically my wife used to be a flight attendant.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of
Oh,
the
okay.
times that our service staff here are trained by her
Mm-hmm.
because she has like that quality of like she used to be assigned in the business class side
Uh-huh.
Right.
of the airline company. So like she knows how to really do really good service to impress execs, to impress those clients. And
Hmm.
so yeah, she's the one who actually teaches a lot of our staff or our SOOP here when people arrive, from the moment you arrive and the moment you leave, you're very, very well taken care of.
This
Nice,
sounds
nice.
so very well traveled.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, right? So she probably tasted all different cuisines from
Yeah.
different parts of the world,
Uh-huh.
and then she has this like back end knowledge of what is good.
What the flavors
Exactly,
are supposed to.
exactly.
She is very choosy, to be honest.
I think that's a good thing, chef, right?
She
Especially
is
being married to you.
Yeah, she's very choosy. And okay, so she only has a few things she actually really likes. Like in general, she only has like a few things she actually likes. And sad to say, she's my biggest critic because like I like bold flavors. She grew up in a Chinese family, and it's very mellow how they would cook their food at home or when they eat with family meals. So it's always a learning experience even for me, even until today. So like when I know the flavors are right, and then she'll be like, "Oh, it's a little salty," but she'll be like, "No, for my taste, it's a bit salty. But maybe if we have a client who's Chinese, I think they'll like it. But if it's
Yeah.
like Filipino, just before service, just add a little salt or just add a little something." And I'm like, okay. So when we see our clients and I see that, oh, okay, they're like this, so I say, okay, then I adjust the seasoning on the fly.
Mm.
Hmm.
So this kind of reminds me of my dynamic with Kyle because he's Singaporean and he is very used to cooking and eating really spicy food. So my level of spice used to be Filipino level of spice. But
Oh
when he
yeah.
introduced me to his cooking, suddenly it's like, oh, my level of Filipino spice isn't spicy at all.
Oh, my wife too,
Exactly.
Kim, she
Mhm.
never ate anything spicy, and me
Uh-huh.
having one of my biggest mentors, Chef C, who's
Mm-mm.
basically Malaysian, your spice tolerance will really go up the roof. So it's like now she enjoys dips like dips that are spicy or
Oh,
sauces that are spicy. The laksa that I make is spicy.
wow.
She likes it. So, oh, finally.
Chef, we also want to touch, running a spot like an elevated fine dining spot over there in Negros. What are some of the challenges that you face before your restaurant opens its doors to people?
My God. We have challenges every day, to be honest. I'll explain the beginning of this entire scenario.
Go for
So
it.
we used to have a restaurant back in the city in Bacolod. It's called Berbesa Bistro, and the restaurant actually was a Southeast Asian fusion restaurant. So we had Vietnamese, Filipino, we had Filipino, Malaysian, Singaporean, Chinese, those things. And so that clicked for like 3 years, and then the pandemic hit. So when the pandemic hit, the business was so bad that we had to close it. So we closed the restaurant, and then so we just concentrated on staying here in the farm, doing other things. And after a while, I was a consultant for other companies, for other businesses in Manila or around the Philippines. And then my wife was telling me that, so, like we're here now in our farm. So why don't you do something? So we started to build on a concept with the help of our friends as well, because we needed producers, we needed suppliers, we needed affiliates. And so on 2023, we basically opened to our friends, to our family, to the Department of Tourism, to Tourism's board, promotions board. We would do their activities for them. That was November 2023. So they had like chefs coming in from Japan, chefs from Spain, chefs from Portugal. And yeah, I would hold or host events here in Sauma. And our vlogger friends, our writer friends, our foodie friends, our chef friends from Manila. Especially, I would like to name this person, Angelo Comsti,
Okay.
Food Dude PH.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who really pushed us to open to the public, because he was telling me like, chef, you have to open to the public. Your food is so good. It's something that's different. No one does these things. And I'm like, okay. So about January, I was talking to my wife, and then she told me like, I was very hesitant, to be honest. I was so hesitant. And then
Mhm.
my wife was like, no, you have to do it. You have to try. Go ahead and try. I said,
Yeah.
well, I know the market in Negros too well. I don't think they'll like it, or I don't think they'll
The
catch on
support.
to the concept. And my wife, no,
Uh-huh.
just go ahead, try it. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, you have nothing to lose, right? So okay, in a almost 2 month time frame, we were going around Negros, the entire island of Negros, from Negros Occidental to Oriental, and we were visiting so many individuals who were doing so many things that no one even heard of, or even us locals we never heard of. And we were partnering with them. We were telling them, "Oh, what's the season for this produce?" And they'll, "Oh, chef, this is the season." I'm like, "Okay, perfect. So we'll build on the menu for that." So the fishermen we were interviewing, I interviewed maybe about 50 to 100 fishermen, and
Wow.
asked them what fish is available this time. What's the best time for this type of fish? What's the
Uh-huh.
best time for this type of shrimp, crab, or octopus, or whatever? And then they would give us certain seasons, and then so we note that down. And we finally opened to the public around March of last year.
Okay. Chef, you haven't said what is the name of the restaurant for our audiences who maybe they want to come to Negros Occidental and
So
dine in.
it's called Sauma Farm Bar and Kitchen. So Sauma
Okay.
means in the farm, because the biggest the biggest thing we want to show people here is we want them to experience the farm life, or in our terms, the hacienda life. Because I don't know, I mean, I haven't really confirmed this, but I think our family is the last, or one of the last haciendas on the island of Negros that still has a complete community intact,
Oh,
where basically everybody in the whole barangay lives in that whole entire area.
okay.
So aside from us doing things seasonally, we also help out the local farmers. We also help out the people around here, because we have a lot of foreign guests to come over, so surprisingly. And
Mhm.
we make them experience, like, if they want to chop down sugarcane, they can go ahead. If they want to ride a carabao, it's safe enough, go ahead.
Uh-huh.
So
Amazing.
that's
So this
the
really sounds like it takes a village to run a business.
oh yeah, it takes a big village to run this business. Because aside from that, the seasonality of what we do, because our menu changes every month. Like literally
Oh, okay. I
every
was gonna
month we
ask about
change.
that.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
And yeah.
Depending on what ingredients are available within the farm and within the province.
Yes, within the province. So okay, this is so surprising. I'm sure even our listeners, or your listeners, your viewers would find this so super funny. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with hamachi, kingfish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So kingfish is very, very sought after in a lot of Japanese restaurants, a lot of
Yes.
American restaurants, right?
Yes.
In Manila, you get half of a hamachi for 5,000 pesos. And it's just
Wow.
half of the fish.
Uh-huh.
That's it. Here, I found out that there is a certain season for the exact same hamachi that you get in Japan. So I did some research. I checked some people, and then they just message me. They send me a picture. Chef, we have this available. Like, oh,
Oh,
nice. And it only cost me about 1,500 to 1,800 the entire fish.
Wow,
wow.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
This is because of the whole migration of fishes
Yes,
as they pass by our Philippine waters.
and surprisingly, I even found out that basically where we are, or where the island of Negros is situated, is actually the highway for marine pelagic fish.
Wow.
So from
Okay.
mahi-mahi, dorado, from tuna,
Right.
wahoo, all of these pelagic fish, they all have to pass to the island.
Interesting, interesting. Chef, I have a very interesting question to ask, right? And I want you to think about this question. And because for me, I'm a foreigner, I'm from Singapore. So this is a more of a foreigner centric question, right? So I understand your food, chef, is more geared towards fine dining, elevated, high end cuisine. So how is this accepted within Negros Occidental, and how do consumers operate their food, right? Like operate when they see your food, when they taste your food for the first time. Because for myself, even though I'm well traveled, I didn't eat ceviche that much. Maybe I've tried it a couple of times. So how do you kind of create this balance between what's unique and what's interesting for you versus what sells and what the Filipinos, what the locals really love?
The Negros market, the people in Negros Occidental Oriental, it's a very different market even compared to Manila market or Cebu market. They're very choosy. They're very choosy, they're very picky. And I emphasize on the choosy and picky part. Okay, so when we opened in March until we ended the year of 2024, we've had a total of 94 groups dine in Sauma. And out of the 94 groups, 70 of those groups are from Manila, Dumaguete, Cebu, Iloilo. And only 24 are from Negros.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So it's a huge percentage that most of our clients are not from the island. So basically, what we are trying to do is in Negros, especially in Bacolod City, a lot of the complaints that a lot of the people or guests go or always say is, or their go-to response is, there's nothing new, or everything's the same. That's always the same exact reaction that everyone gets, right? So the way that we battle that comment or that way of thinking is that we change our menu every month, how we curate things and how they want it. To be honest, I don't know, but I think aside from one of our friends in Siargao Roots, I think we're like the cheapest degustation. That the 7 to 8 courses at around 2,900 pesos.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so like we're one of the
Especially
cheapest.
compared to Metro Manila prices.
Oh, definitely. So we go on the fact that what we make is very different. So it's things that people haven't tried, but the flavors have to be a little familiar. So that is our, maybe I guess we can say our niche, because we do things differently, but there are aspects to the dish that we make familiar to the people here that they go, right, yeah, it tastes like kinilaw, but it doesn't look like kinilaw. So
Uh,
yeah, that's how it works here.
mm-mm.
Mm.
So, how is it different for a farm to table restaurant to like a regular dining restaurant that has a fixed menu?
Well, our menu changes literally every month, but what we do is we customize things as well. So, example, if we have 7 courses and we show our menu to our guests, the guests would actually say that, is it okay if, because normally when I go to a restaurant they say I can't change it, those things, and they say, is it okay if you guys can change this because I prefer something else? So we're like, okay ma'am, sure. Then we change it and then we send it to her, do you prefer this? And they'll be like, oh my god, chef, yeah, you can do that. I said, yes, of course.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we actually cater to the client more than we cater to ourselves,
Mm-mm.
because a lot of the times, which is also hard, is that you have a lot of restaurants who go, we have this allergen, we have this preference,
Mm-mm.
pescatarian, all of these. And so what we do is we also set boundaries. So
Mm-mm.
example, on our normal menu, that we post every month, everybody can has access to that. But if we have a client that goes, "Oh, chef, I'm pescatarian," so we always suggest, "Oh, so since ma'am, our menu has beef, pork, or chicken, would you like to book an exclusive day for you that is not on our scheduled dates, and we will create a menu specific to your request."
Wow,
Eh,
and that's amazing. This is like the ultimate date night spot. If you want to make your special one feel extra special, you would fly them from Manila
To
to
Bacolod.
yeah, exactly, and then go to Chef's restaurant and say like we're gonna have a private dining session.
Yes. Actually, that is one of the things we do. So whatever we post on our social media is actually the schedule that we put, right? So this is our available schedules. But in between those dates are people who've already pre-booked an exclusive day for us that we actually customize the menu for them. So we don't just play around with our menu. We almost do an interview with them. We say, "Ma'am, sir, this is our menu for the month. Would you like to change anything to your liking? Do you have any preference?" And so, yeah.
And chef, for the audience that is interested to what they're hearing, you are strictly by reservation only restaurant, yes?
Yes, only reservations. We don't allow walk-ins. And so far, we actually require a week or two bookings
For advance
before your
booking.
intended dates. Yeah.
Right.
Our menu will literally depend on what we can get for the week or for the day.
So, being a farm to table restaurant, does that mean that you, like for example, for this month's menu, you're only partnering with a particular supplier of fish, vegetables, or meats? Or do you, like, it really depends on the recipes that you're making for that month?
No, no, our recipes actually depend on the availability, and we just don't partner with just one fisherman. We can easily partner with four in just
Ah,
one menu. And
yeah.
with farmers, we can easily partner with three farmers with just one recipe, even.
Mm.
So it really actually our menu really depends on what is available, because the hardest part for me is that sometimes when I write the menu for the next month, I call up our suppliers and then they'll be like, "Oh chef, yes, this is available." But the moment the week starts, they go, "Oh my god, chef, I'm sorry, because of the rain, this wasn't
Yeah.
available. This is the new that's available." So I'm like, "Okay, time to change."
Yeah. Oh, so you really have to be very flexible if you're doing a farm to table concept.
Yeah, I don't want to be so politically correct, but we don't even consider ourselves like farm to table or farm to fork. We really consider ourselves as hyper local.
Right, yeah.
Right. Chef, question time. So I've been here in the Philippines for about 2 years, 2.5 years now, right? One of the things I notice, especially living in the metro, is that number one, vegetables are so expensive as compared to other parts of the world that I've been in, like Australia, Singapore. So I'm also trying to figure out, as a foreigner, Philippines being like a agriculture country in a sense, why are produce so expensive, chef? Like, is that the same case in the provinces, or is there a breakdown in the supply chain where things get mucked up? And that's my first question, right? And my second question is that, with that being said, dining out in Metro Manila, especially places like BGC and Makati, is definitely, I would say, very, very comparable to other first world cities like Singapore and Hong Kong. So definitely like the bang for the buck versus what you get is a tough sell for restaurant owners, at least in the metro.
Oh yeah. So we do a lot of pop-ups in Manila, or we do a lot of events in Manila. But I can tell, like, majority of the time when we do pop-ups, we always bring our ingredients coming from here to Manila. Yeah. Sad to say, the ingredients here are not as diverse as what you can find in Manila. Like, I mean, it's hard for us to find baby carrots here, but we can find carrots that are baby in size, but not necessarily baby carrots.
Mhm.
And
And, and
okay,
and if you are a great chef like yourself, you can make baby carrots in size taste better than baby carrots.
I don't want to say I'm a great chef. No, I'm just trying my best. I am honestly just trying my best every single day. What's the biggest benefit for us is that we have access to a lot of produce, especially here on the island of Negros, since we're agricultural dependent, right? But
Exactly.
in terms of price, okay, onions, okay, just the basics. Onions, garlic, ginger, tomatoes are a bit pricey, but not as pricey as in the metro, like in Manila. But here for us, they're a bit pricey. But I don't do a lot of my marketing in groceries because I really go to the wet markets, or I really go to the different towns that I know that have their produce, and I see what's available. And okay, this story I actually tell a lot to my guests because they even get shocked. Do you realize that in our island, since we are an agricultural island, that we have a volcano, we have the sea, we have the mountains, we have plateaus and whatnot, we found that there are so many produce, like even pears, to the point that it can actually rival French pears
Wow.
that are grown
Yes.
locally.
I didn't
That
know we had pears.
even me, I didn't know. I did not know a single bit, a single time that we had pears. And I was going
Uh-huh.
around and I saw, like, I said, "Oh my god, these are pears."
Uh-huh.
And then the farmer goes, "Oh yeah, I grow these." I said, "Okay,
Wow.
how much can you grow in a year?" He goes like, "Oh, it's only seasonal. It's only from the month of February, March, April." And I tell him, "Okay, so how much for 1 kilo?" And this specific pear I saw in Salcedo Market one time. And I
Mm-mm.
asked the person, "Oh, how much is this?" "Oh, this is a Japanese pear, blah, blah, blah. It's for 750 a kilo." And I look
Oh,
at her
wow.
and I'm like, "Oh my Lord." And
Yeah.
then the next few months, I call up my friend who I met who grew that here locally. And I asked
Uh-huh.
them, "Oh, how much per kilo?" Is 200 fine with you?"
Oh, and I like he's asking for a consent.
Exactly. And I'm like, "It's so okay. I can give you
Yeah.
200. I can give you 50 extra."
Yeah.
So it's like that. Even like I said with the hamachi. So I'm not the usual conventional thinker when it comes to produce. To the point where my wife said, "Why don't you try Brussels sprouts? Why don't you try these things?" And I said, "Well, they don't grow locally, right?"
Yeah.
But I found out that I finally partnered with one farmer from Mount Canlaon,
Okay.
and he actually grows cabbage, like the normal everyday cabbage that you see, like
Mm-mm.
the purple green cabbage.
Mm-mm.
And I buy his cabbage basically the size of your fist, and when
Okay.
you cook it, it tastes exactly like Brussels sprouts.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it costs like what, 80 pesos.
So I'm seeing a trend with Chef Don here. So if something is unavailable, he's always willing to substitute. And he's not afraid to substitute, but because he can still elevate those flavors just the
Mm-mm.
same,
Oh
or
yeah,
better.
substitution is actually a lot of what we do. Let's say, okay, in our farm, we grow a lot of the produce, or not a lot of the produce, but the citrus, the edible flowers. My wife, she grows them all. And so right now, a lot of our citrus revolves around dalandan. So that's what's available right now. By March, yes, we'll have key lime, so dayap. By summertime, we'll have calamansi. So the menu, the citrus, especially the citrus aspects, revolves around that, and it's for free.
Oh, that's nice because you grow it.
Yeah, we grow it. So even our herbs from our lemon basil, we have like four kinds of basil, we have three kinds of thyme, we have four kinds of mint, we have like 10 types of edible flowers. So it's like free range to play that won't cost an arm and a leg.
That's super interesting, Chef. Question for you. How do you see farming? I know that you and your wife, you guys kind of operate the farm that kind of supports the restaurant. It is its own mini supply chain in a way. But how do you see farming evolving in the Philippines over the next couple of years? Because it seems like the new generation, they are not very interested in farming right now. And that's what I get her.
This well, the sad thing about this is that farming has a stigma of being like as a low end job that won't earn you anything in the long run. But that's not true. A lot of our friends now are getting into farming, but farming is just not planting, because you have aquaculture, which is a type of farming. Now you deal with fish. And
Mhm.
a lot of the times, a lot of our friends now are concentrating on that because they can produce red snapper, they can produce sea bass, shellfish, oysters. They can produce types of shrimp, types of prawns. So these are big things in the market, and you'll be surprised. These guys, like, they look like, to be honest, I mean, they look like they don't, like, they just wear shorts, tattered clothes and whatnot. But like, when they get to harvest for a year and it's a good harvest, you'd be surprised. They'd be riding in a Land Cruiser, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, farming is definitely super lucrative. Like, in the US, right? They say never look down the lumberjack, right? Because he makes millions a year.
yeah, exactly. And in the Philippines, as long as you do it right, as long as you persevere, because I mean, farming is not a perfect form of business because you'll always have ups and downs. Farming is also a type of business where you cannot see if someone has stolen from you. You cannot see that until the end of the day. But at the end of the day, if you know how to manage it properly, you know how to be a boss, but be fair enough to your workers. You take care of them, because I guarantee you that they'll take care of you. You'll have less of a headache at the end of the day.
One of my key takeaways so far from this conversation is that being hyper local not only benefits a business like yours, but also the local economy. And then as a customer, you can enjoy an elevated dining experience for a more affordable cost. Like degustation dining doesn't have to be so expensive.
Yeah, actually, yes. Even our friends who have visited here, who are chefs in Manila,
Mm-mm.
who have restaurants in Manila, they even go like, how could you do this at this price? And then when they ask me na, can you take us to the market? So I take them around the market, and then they ask, how much is that? And then the lady goes, oh, it's only 100. And they're like, huh? 100? And then, so it's
You mean
that's a
like 100 per piece?
100 per kilo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it freaks them out, but it's like it freaks
Yeah.
them out in a good way. Honestly, to be super frank, I was one of the skeptics of being hyper local, because I want imported things to give a good, like, give good flavor, give good presentation and those things. And I realized, like, oh my god, I can just do that here. So like
Exactly, exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, I agree with you on so many levels, especially being, I've traveled quite a bit, been to all restaurants and whatnot, most restaurants overseas. Imported doesn't mean better. And
yeah,
I
no.
think Filipinos need to realize this, that
Yes.
Philippines definitely have ingredients that will make the best food already. Doesn't mean if something is imported from Japan it's better. Doesn't mean something is imported from the US is better. And I think Filipinos still negotiate between, like, well, if it's imported, then I must pay more because it's better. But that's not really true, chef. Yes.
Not at all. I can say it's not at all true, because like when we make our mashed potatoes, of course we'll put butter. Yeah, you need butter. Butter is flavor, but we don't put milk or cream. We put gata. We put coconut cream,
And this is a local ingredient
and this is a
that
local
is
ingredient
very
that
rich in the Philippines.
yeah, and it costs 20 pesos.
Oh, yes.
Compared to cream, that 1 liter of cream would cost you 400 bucks.
Yes.
So big
Yeah.
difference. But
Yes.
you get more flavor, you get that robust sweetness from the coconut, and that's when you realize. And okay, as far as I go with some of the things that I buy, like for our November December menu, the only thing that I have ever bought in those 2 months that were imported was the truffle oil. That's it.
Okay, okay. Because this
That's it.
one is not very
It's not
much
local.
available in the
It's so
market.
hard to do, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's it. Now, for our January menu, the only thing that I bought that was imported was Japanese soy sauce. And that's it. Everything is
Why a
all local.
Japanese soy sauce?
No, no, but Japanese really, like, I watched a documentary on this.
Uh-huh.
Japanese really treat their soy sauce super seriously.
Ah.
It's
Oh
no
yeah.
Okay,
joke.
so
They,
But
they, they do
okay,
it by hand.
this is the one thing I always stand by. So when we do something, when we buy something that's imported, or when we buy something that's, let's say, outside of the island of Negros, I have to know the person selling me the item. I have to know how it was grown, how they fed it, how they slaughtered
mm-mm.
it. I have to know all of that, because if I don't
Ah,
know, or if I know that you're BSing me, I'm not gonna buy
yeah.
from you. I'm gonna find somebody else.
Yeah, this is
So
very much a sustainable way of choosing your ingredients.
yeah, and then even the soy sauce. Actually, the soy sauce that I have on hand right now is actually from someone I know that does artisanal soy sauce in Kyoto.
Mm.
So yeah, it's like that.
Question, chef. So, to really cultivate this idea of, farm to table and people growing their own food and the farming industry really booming in the Philippines, because we do have ample land over here.
Yes.
What do you think that, as a farm owner yourself, what do you think that the government can do at the federal level or the provincial level to really help farmers?
Well, recently the government helped put the fertilizer prices down. A big up for farmers, that the is the one of the most important things that you can use to grow food items. A lot of the times, in a political sense, is that we should stop importing things. Like, we should buy local, the government should buy local, the government should support local. That's the biggest thing. I mean, practically I understand why they cannot do that 100%, but you know, to show that they are supporting a lot of the communities in a way, like right now, like Terra Madre, the government now is the one that's pushing these people in slow food, Terra Madre, organic festivals. They're the ones that are, the government is the one pushing them to, okay, show the international world that we have this produce, invest in us, which is good for
Mm-hmm.
us.
Exactly, exactly. Chef, I have a hypothesis, right? And I want to see if you agree with the hypothesis or not. This
Okay.
is a more of a technical culinary hypothesis, right?
Okay.
So, if I'm a person here in the Philippines, so I could be foreigner or local, and I want to open a French, Italian, Indian restaurant and whatnot, am I right to say that actually all the ingredients that I need to run the restaurant can be found in the Philippines? I rarely need to import anything, or very few things, as a matter of fact, because Philippines has almost everything in terms of produce.
Yes, to an extent, yes. If you're like those critical thinking restaurateurs who really, really, really are so passionate of their concept and want to really, like, example, Peruvian. I mean, you can only find a few types of starch in the Philippines, like potatoes. We only have one type of potato. We have kamote, but we have like four types of kamote. We have cassava and those things. But most of the time, if you're talking about ceviche, which is like, the ingredients are like coriander, lime, black pepper, salt, and,
Salt,
fish and
yeah.
whatnot, right?
Hmm.
So we have all of that. It's just that if you're specific on, oh my God, I need this Peruvian pepper that's grown in the Alps of Machu Picchu or something like that. So, okay, we can't do that. But
Yeah.
we
Sure.
have the pepper. So it depends if the restaurateur or the chef is flexible enough. But yeah, I mean, we get the exact same. If you're talking about Indian food, we get the same ghee that you can get in India. It's just that it's just the commercial kind, not like the super, like high end ghee that you can only find it in Mumbai or in New Delhi. But we still get the same quality ghee that they have there. Spices we still can get everything. Actually, we can get, like, okay, one of our friends, they just opened a restaurant, Mamacita, in BGC.
Yeah.
So
We've
like
been
they
there.
really good,
I've
right?
been there. Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
good,
the
right?
tacos are really good. Yes, yes, I
So
have to say.
Charles, I had a super long conversation regarding this, because I told him, so you guys have to bring in your ingredients, and he goes like, to be honest, bro, like the ancho chili, these chilies have to be imported, and then
For the sauce, this is
yeah,
for the sauce.
for the sauce to get
Ah,
the same taste. So okay,
Yeah.
okay.
so I challenged myself. To be honest, I challenged myself.
To
So on the
recreate the
min
sauce.
to create a sauce, but using everything local.
Uh-huh.
So for 2 months before December of last year, I created a mole. So it's a Mexican sauce that I was doing so much research on, and it's so specific on the ingredients, right? And so I was like, okay, this is a good challenge. So I created this mole, but using all, and I mean all, local ingredients, including the chilies, because I had to dehydrate them myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
We had the exact same chilies, but different names. I just dehydrated them myself, and then I mixed them into the mole. I used local chocolate that's made and grown here on the island, and I
Mm-hmm.
served that.
Mm-hmm.
During one event, I served it to Charles
Uh-huh.
and to our friends, and he goes like, "Dude, this is good mole.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you buy that? Dude, I made everything. Everything's from
Mm-mm.
here." And he goes like, "No way." I said, "Yep, everything's from here."
See, it's possible.
It's
Yeah,
possible. It's
It
it's
just
possible.
it.
needs some creativity and then some R&D.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What I really, I mean, since we're talking about Mamacita, one of the things that I really liked, during my experience in Mamacita was that chef, they didn't try to Filipinize the flavors, right? They try to keep it as Mexican as possible, and if it's spicy, it's spicy. So be it, right? And if it tastes a certain way, they just keep it at that. Most restaurants here in Metro, they try to Filipinize the flavor. Like less spicy, more salt, more sweetness. And I think like Mamacita really kept true to the Mexican identity. I have to give it to them.
Which I idolize, which I actually idolize, especially with Charles, because he will stand by his principles when it comes to doing food
Flavors.
and flavors. And that's where I also stand by, because even with our food, out of our six guests, you'll have that one guest go like, "Oh, it's a bit salty," and then and then all the other guests just look at them and go, "No, it was good."
No, it's
And then we're like, for us, it's like, thank God. Yeah, it's always actually an uphill battle when it comes to that. The flavors, the taste.
because you can't satisfy
Oh
everyone.
yeah, you cannot. I mean, okay, since like he's Singaporean, so I'm sure if I make you my version of chili crab, but I don't tell you the ingredients, and if you like it, you'll be like, "Oh, chef, it's good." But if I tell you what's inside, you're gonna be like, "Oh my God, that's a bastardization of of
Oh,
of
how
The
do you
of
mean?
the
original.
of the original." But in my opinion, it's like this is the things I
This
can
is your
do
version. Yeah,
to
and this is
with
the
what I have.
ingredients that you have on hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have candle nut. I don't have candle
So,
nut,
so,
but
so, chef, that's a little bit of what I do, but obviously on a minute, super mini scale. What I try to do is I will open my fridge and see what ingredients are in my fridge, and whatever is
Mm-mm.
available. I'm not going to the groceries. I'm just gonna make things happen.
yeah, same with us. Okay, when we go to the grocery here, like we go to SNR and Landers, the only thing I buy there is toilet paper, tissue paper, and that's it. Everything else, I'm out and about in different wet markets.
Okay, I want to segue a little bit. So at 1111, we do a lot of real estate related research and conversations. One of the nice things that I really like about what you're doing um, is that you are also preserving the land that your family has in an agricultural sense,
Yes.
because a lot of the land are getting redeveloped into either residential or commercial, but in your creative way you're able to preserve this and then offer a really different
And
experience.
make
And
money out of it.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
and preserve your land within your family.
It's actually it's a little bit of a promise that I made to my grandfather before he died. And he specifically told me, "I don't care about your other cousins. I don't care about whatever they do with their side of their property or whatnot. But please promise me that even when I'm gone, you will not sell the land that I give you or I give to your father and he will give to you. But please, I would like you to develop it." So before he died, I promised him that, and until now, I promised my father that, and now, it's a big driving principle for me that we actually stay here in the farm. We actually live
Mm-mm.
here in the farm now
Mm-mm.
than we've ever did in my entire life. And even my wife, who's from Manila, she appreciates the farm life
Yeah.
where she would see the potential and what we can do. So
Uh-huh.
even to the point that my dad told her, "Okay, Akim, you have 1 hectare over there. Go ahead and plant whatever you want. Here are the people
Mm-mm.
who will help you. Go. Just do it."
Mm-mm.
So
Yeah.
it's to that extent where even for me, that my parents see the effort that we put into Saoma, that even they are willing and without any doubt or without any question, help us develop Sauma to not just being a destination restaurant, it's also a destination restaurant and community.
Yeah, yeah, that's really important. You know, I remember this while we were having the conversation of supporting local farmers. In one of the trips that I did to Iloilo, I went to this municipality, or I think it's a city now, in Cabatuan, in
Yeah,
Iloilo. And when you go there, there's really a lot of rice lands. And then I was speaking with a city councilor. I was asking them, like, there's so much potential here, especially for agriculture. And then he was telling me that, yeah, we really invite investments to support the agriculture sector by putting in the infrastructure. For example, like dry warehouses, a cold storage, so that they can produce more. And
that's perfect
because right
actually.
now they're not maximizing the land
Yeah.
because there's no infrastructure. So I'm wondering if, like, in your area, you have a similar experience.
Okay. So what I do is a little bit more okay. The problem in the province, or actually the community that, or the people around in Negros, as I said earlier in our program, is that so we had 94 guests, we had 70 were from Manila or from outside of Negros, and we had 24 from Negros, right?
Yeah.
So you know that the only time when people from Negros started noticing Sauma was there was when we were featured on Erwan Yusuf's YouTube channel Fitir. Yeah, Fitir. And that was the only time where people from Negros started noticing Sauma. But if
Mhm.
we weren't featured there, I guarantee you we'd had even less people from Negros
Supporting the business.
supporting the business, because the type of the mentality that people have on the island is that they will only notice it when someone else notices it, and then the person who
Mm-mm.
notices it is someone from Manila or someone outside
Mm.
who has a big following, and that's when they start noticing it. So we try to reverse it, and basically when I do events or when I do features, I rarely feature myself, but I have other people being featured, because for them, I want them to grow, because if they grow, I also grow.
Yeah.
Or if they get noticed, eventually I'll also get noticed,
Mm-mm.
because their produce is what helps us do what we do here in Zauma. That's the biggest factor, to be honest.
So, chef, more of a fun question now. Most of people in Metro Manila, especially if they're living in Makati and BGC, they live in condos, or they live in apartments of sorts, and sometimes they have a balcony, chef, right? So, what can someone do if their intention is, well, I want to try to grow my own food, or my own fruits, or my own vegetables? What can they start with? Because you have farming expertise as well. What are
Yeah.
some of the basics and essentials that someone can start with growing their own food in their balcony quite easily?
Okay, if you have, I'm not saying this in a way that's, up nosed, or I don't know the proper term, but basically, if you have the money to burn, or if you have cash, extra cash, do hydroponics.
Yeah.
The water
In your
tower there.
balcony, chef, is that possible? Hydroponics in your balcony?
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
possible on your balcony. You
Okay.
can, because they have the basically what they call, I think, the standing pots where it stands
Yeah.
up.
The
A
vertical
vertical.
farming type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is one way where you don't have dirt and the
Yeah.
water is recycled. All you have to do is
Uh-huh.
just basically plug in the motor that runs the circulation of the water, and you're all good. The second is, if you really want to use dirt, I suggest herbs.
Mm-mm.
Okay. What sort, chef? Can you be a bit more specific for our audience? To guide them in the right direction.
So the easiest so far that even us we've experimented on are mint, rosemary,
Okay.
thyme, basil.
Mm-mm.
Basil is actually the easiest to grow of all the
Uh-huh.
herbs.
Yeah, I love
But
basil.
yeah, those are the easiest to grow. Second would be, for vegetables, would be tomatoes.
Uh-huh.
Tomatoes are
Okay.
easy. Spring onion, a little bit if you're patient enough. Yeah.
Sometimes I just put my spring onions from the grocery to a instead of glass.
Oh yeah, it works. It works.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it works. Chili peppers work perfect.
Oh wow.
But as far as
Oh
it goes,
yeah.
so far that's all.
Wait, chef. One of my favorite vegetables here because I'm into spicy food is labuyo. Can I grow labuyo
Oh yeah, you
on
can.
my balcony? I
Oh yeah,
can.
no
Oh
doubt.
wow. Okay.
That's the easiest thing to grow, to be honest.
Okay. I think I'm gonna do that.
That's the easiest. I can guarantee you that's the easiest to grow.
Chef, with that being said, if we take a segue, we want to talk a little bit about. We understand that you're also giving back to the community, really contributing back to the people of Negros Occidental community work. You being a counselor, can you tell us a little bit more for our audience to really understand? Chef Don.
So a lot of people don't know that I am a municipal counselor, and so far, when we attend all these Philippine Counselors League in Manila, I think I'm the only one who's a chef and a counselor at the same time. So the way that I program our projects, especially my personal projects for the community. So example, when there's a calamity, right? When there's a calamity, you always see people like giving pancit canton, canned goods, and rice, right? That's like the
Yeah.
usual standards of what people give. What we do is, since these people who sell vegetables are also affected, we actually buy vegetables from them and we make care packages, but in the form of like chop suey, pakbet. So basically,
Okay.
they're all ready-made food packs, that
Ingredients. Yeah.
ingredients that for pakbet that will last you for 3 days.
Mm-mm,
Chop
mm-mm,
suey that will last you for 3 days. We
mm-mm,
add rice, but we rarely give canned goods. So
mm-mm.
we buy from these vegetable farmers who will earn the money. Then when they earn the money, they can buy their goods to keep them going and continue their produce. And we're giving food to people who actually need food. Because I mean, to be honest, when you give someone 500 pesos, they're not gonna buy eggs the first day, the first moment they receive the 500. That's for sure.
They're gonna buy
Yeah.
alcohol.
So
Yeah. A
yeah.
few will.
Yeah. So I think like what's important in Chef Don's work is that he also helps people think of what's good for them, so it doesn't overcomplicate, especially on the food aspect,
Yeah.
because it can get a bit tricky when there's a calamity and people are unsure, like where do I go to get this care
Mhm.
package and whatnot. So kind of
I think
streamline the process.
it's also part of this whole circular economy mindset where Chef Don supports the local farmers because the local farmers also supports his business.
And they're also affected if there's a
It
calamity.
Yeah,
just revolves.
exactly.
Yeah, it just revolves around us, so that
Mm-mm,
we're helping these people. These people will help themselves, and then
mm-mm.
at the long run, they'll actually give us like produce. They'll be like, chef, we have an over ex the Konsi, we have an over excess ng ganitong vegetables. Bigay na lang
Mm-mm.
we'll just give it to you to give to your people. And we're
Uh-huh.
like, oh, thank you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
There's a
Uh-huh.
time we had this big bad storm, Odette,
Yeah.
and we received a truckload of cabbage,
Oh no.
like
Mm-mm.
literal a truck of
Uh-huh.
cabbage. So
What did you
every
do with it?
so everyone had chop suey for like a month.
Okay.
Okay.
So everyone had chop suey for a month. So
uh,
like yeah, it's a give and take process. Aside from that, I also teach communities how to process food for free. Give
uh-huh.
them some of the tools, like, okay, this is how you pickle, this is how you ferment,
Mm.
this is how you turn
Mm-hmm.
this into a jam, this is how
Wow.
you like chicharon of mushrooms. This is what we teach them.
And not to forget, with your restaurant, you're also providing jobs to the local communities, right? For sure.
Yes. What we do is, so we bring in people who need jobs, and then we also push applicants to our friends, our affiliates, restaurants. We even have a few of our friends or our constituents from here, from our town. They work now in Manila. I was even surprised that when I was eating at, what's this restaurant? I was eating at Ramenagi, and the waiter brings me my order and then has a note, and he goes, "Good afternoon, Konsi." And then I'm like, "Oh
Oh
my god,
wow.
oh!" And then so it's
Galing.
it's like that, yeah.
Mm-mm.
Chef, thank you so much for your time. But before you go, I have one question for you, and it's a controversial question. A lot of chefs don't like to answer this, but I'm gonna ask you anyway because I think like
Okay.
you've got a good head on your shoulders. So right now, there's this big drive towards being healthy and into fitness and into working out and whatnot. So the
Okay.
question is eating healthy expensive in Manila?
Okay, so I for one, I want to be healthy, but it's kind of hard with our schedule. Just to clear the air. Right now, I have weighed more than I've ever weighed in my life. So
Oh.
so I'm trying to get
Is it
back
because of all the
to
R&D?
no, it's actually because we were so I'm a runner. So I actually run a
Ah,
lot before.
uh-huh.
Pero it's just that we just haven't had that much time to exercise. But
Okay.
anyway, yeah. So, yes, to be honest, it's not expensive to eat healthy. The only time it gets expensive if you go to healthy options. Sorry, but if they don't sponsor, it's fine. But
I think I
basically,
agree.
if you
And
go to
I guess it's my biggest takeaway is that you don't need to spend so much to eat
Okay.
something elevated
And nutritious.
and nutritious.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not okay. I'm not saying that you should go vegan. I'm not saying that, or you should go pescatarian. No, because those are the two most expensive diets in the whole world, to be honest. But if you say eat healthy and if you say it's expensive, I challenge people in Manila, go to farmers market at 4 or 5 in the morning. Buy all your vegetables from there for a week of what your dietary plan is. You buy all of your vegetables there for a week. And then the following week, you buy the exact same vegetables in, like, let's say, a supermarket like Rostan's or SM or Robinson's or Ayala or whatever. But if you go there and then you compare, you will see how far the price range is from each other. But if you buy in Cubao Market, where it's very local, it's very, I mean, like, it's super, super local,
Mm-mm.
it helps our farmers, it helps the people around the community. And,
Mm-mm.
like, you'll see the big difference in price range.
For sure, for sure.
I can guarantee that. I know I sound so controversial, but uh but yeah, even for me, it even for me, I noticed that my wife would go to the supermarket and I always bring her to the wet market, and then even just a carrot, she'll be like, she'll look at the carrot in the supermarket and go like, "Oh yeah, buy that carrot." She'll buy this, and then we'll go to a supermarket and she goes, "That's the price?" I said, "Yeah, that's the price here. That's different there." He goes like, "Okay, let's go
Yeah.
back to the wet market."
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so
That's
yeah.
one very good call to action as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to encourage more Filipinos to shop at the wet market because they will get better value and better
Better
bang for
quality.
better value for money for sure.
Oh yeah,
Right?
biggest factor is the price.
Exactly.
To be honest, it's the price. It's just really the price.
Chef, thank you so much for joining us in this podcast. Me and Alex are super stoked to have you. It's been such a exciting, invigorating conversation. I think I've learned a lot, Alex. How about
I've
you?
really learned a lot. Thank you so much for sharing all your insight.
We want to invite our audiences to go to this restaurant, Sauma, that is run by Chef Don. But make sure make your reservations because he doesn't accept walk-ins, and it will be the ultimate date night, right? Chef, I'm sure there are some hotels that guests can stay if they're looking to um, be in that province as well and go to
Yes,
your restaurant.
I think, yeah. Chef
We're
Don can
actually
invite the audience to come. Where is Sauma in Bacolod?
okay. Well, Sauma is actually 40 minutes south of Bacolod City.
Okay.
It's not that far. I mean,
Mm-mm.
it takes only about an hour to travel 55 kilometers, where in Manila it takes 2 hours to travel 10 kilometers. So it's not that bad.
Yes.
It's not that bad. And yes, we're strictly reservations.
Yeah.
We post our menu, our schedule every month on our Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Okay.
So where
Where
can they
should
find
they
you
follow?
on Facebook and Instagram? That just
Sauma
Okay.
Farm Bar and Kitchen.
Okay,
Salma
great.
Farm Bar and Kitchen.
Yes.
Once again, Chef Don, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much, and you guys are welcome, Kyle, Alex. You guys are welcome
Yeah.
here anytime.
We'll definitely visit you.
We'll definitely go. I want to try this ceviche thing.
Yeah, I
Yes.
know. This conversation is making me hungry.
Chef, thank you once again and have a lovely evening ahead.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so
guys. You
much.
too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Take care. Good
Bye.
night.